Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Enduring Long COVID. I'm Sherry, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Today's episode is about a time in my illness when I didn't know the rules anymore. I didn't know that television could make me sicker. I didn't know that talking to my friends could trigger symptoms. I didn't know that exercise wasn't helping me, it was hurting me. I thought if I could just keep pushing, eventually I'd get back to who I was. Instead, every time I pushed, I got further away. At the time, none of it made sense. Looking back now, I can see that my body was giving me clues, but I didn't know how to recognize them. One of the first clues was something that seemed so small. One of my favorite shows was on. The title was Empire. I had always loved watching it. Then one day I realized I couldn't get through an episode anymore. I could only watch about 10 minutes before I started feeling awful. My brain felt overwhelmed. My body felt like it had reached a limit. So I stopped. The next day, if I felt a little better, I'd watch another 10 minutes. I didn't know that my brain could no longer tolerate all the emotion, the music, the fast scene changes, and the constant visual stimulation. It wasn't that I stopped enjoying the television show. It was that my brain simply couldn't tolerate it anymore. Back then, I didn't realize that neurological overstimulation was part of long COVID. Another loss was much more personal. Most of my closest friends lived out of town. Before COVID, we talked on the phone all the time. Hours would pass before we even noticed. Then something changed. The phone would ring, and I'd think, I'll call them tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. Next week became next month. Eventually, I stopped calling altogether. It wasn't because I stopped loving them. Talking had become work. Every conversation required me to think, remember, process information, find words, respond, control my breathing, and stay emotionally present. Something that had once filled my cup was now draining every bit of energy I had. People hear the words, it's just a phone call. But people living with long COVID understand that a phone call can be physical work, cognitive work, emotional work, all at the same time. Then there was exercise. Like so many people, I believed exercise would help me recover. So I tried exercising for years, even up until 2024. But at that point, my body had completely shut down. On the days that I worked before COVID, I'd walk for 30 minutes. On my off days, I walked 6 miles. I attempted to do this after COVID. I thought it was the right thing to do. Instead, I experienced one of the longest crashes of my illness. It lasted for months. At the time, I didn't connect the dots. I thought I was simply getting worse. I had never heard of post-exertional malaise. I didn't know the symptoms could be delayed for hours or even days. I just knew that every time I tried harder, my body responded by shutting down even more. Then came 2023. My daughters and I moved everything ourselves. I kept pushing because that's what I'd always done. I was a nurse. I pushed through. I finished the job. You worry about yourself later. But this time, there was no later. After that move, I disappeared into what I call the upside down world. I lived there for nearly a year. It was a place where taking a shower would exhaust me, where conversations became even more overwhelming, where television became too stimulating and I could not even tolerate 10 minutes of it, where grocery shopping felt like climbing a mountain, where every part of my world became smaller and smaller. At the time, I didn't know I was entering into that world. I kept waiting for my old life to come back. One of the hardest parts of long COVID is that it teaches you to question yourself. I'd have a good day and think, maybe I'm finally feeling better. So I tried to clean the house. I ran errands. I tried to catch up with my friends. I tried to live like the old Sherry. Then I'd crash again every single time. I started wondering if I was imagining things, if I was just out of shape, if I wasn't trying hard enough. I was gaslighting myself because I didn't understand how this illness worked. Looking back now, none of those experiences were random. They were clues. My body wasn't failing me. It was desperately trying to tell me it had reached its limit. I just didn't know how to listen yet. If you're listening today and you're wondering why you can't watch your favorite television show anymore, why you've stopped answering your friends, why exercise keeps making you worse, why your world keeps getting smaller, I want you to hear this. You're not imagining it, you're not weak, and you're not alone. I lived it too. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this episode helped you feel seen, I hope you'll share it with someone who needs to understand what long COVID really feels like. Until next time, take care of yourself, listen to your body, and remember, you are not alone in this journey. There are millions of us out here. Take care.